Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a video all about the brand new MAC Art Library collection, and it contains 3 12-pan palettes as well as 3 brand new matte lipsticks. I have 5 eye tutorials for you guys. I have been doing them over the last few days, testing these palettes out because when I swatched these, I was a little scared that these were going to be terrible. So I really wanted to make sure that I really put them to the test, gave you guys multiple options, and let you guys see how these palettes perform. So I'm just going to jump straight into this. You can only purchase this, I believe, on Nordstrom.com, which is where I got mine. I checked MAC's website and they are not there. Like, I just went there. So if tomorrow they're there, when this goes up, I didn't know about it. I'm gonna go over the information, show you guys the swatches. I'm gonna show you 5 different tutorials, and then I'm gonna give you guys my opinions at the end. So let's go ahead and start off with the palettes. Because these are sold on Nordstrom, there's really not a lot of information about them. A lot of times on MAC's website or a brand's website in general, there'll be a lot of information like, oh, this shade was inspired by, or use this way, da 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 da. All it says is that you can use these shadows wet or dry, blah blah blah. Some of these are repeats and some of them are new, but I will get into all that. So the very first one is the Nude Model Palette, and each of these retail for $48, and you're getting 12 shades. So on the front, you have this really nice, when I first saw these, honestly, all you could see was the palettes opened up and it looked like Morphe. So I'm happy to have this in my hand and tell you that they feel nice and sturdy, heavy, and they feel good. It doesn't feel like a Morphe palette. You have the shade names on the back as well as these little doohickeys that I don't like. But if you like to have those, you do have the sheet with all the names on them, and then you have a very large mirror. So this whole compact is very nice. This is what the palette looks like, so I'm going to go ahead and get into the swatches. We have Shroom, Go Lightly, Outre, Sandstone, LES Artiste, Drop the Robe, Tete-a-Tente, Espresso, Pleasing to the Eye, Nude Model, Sugar Plum, and Dance in the Dark. Now you're going to notice that in these swatches there's another shade at the end. So there's actually 2 Dance in the Dark in the swatches, and that's because I went in with the original Dance in the Dark. The first time I can remember it being in a palette was in the original Warm 15 palette right here, and it's the shade right there. So when I swatched that shade, let me tell you, it felt like sand. And I was like, what is going on with this shade? So I dug around. I also found it in this palette right here, the Say Chic palette. And both of those were creamy, and this one feels like sand, like absolute dry. I can dig around in here and it just feels like sand. You're not gonna be able to see, but it's just not a good swatch. You just don't expect that. Let me go ahead and get the other one and swatch it. It's so much creamier. Like, what is this? So I went ahead and swatched this one right beside that Dance in the Dark so that I could show that there's definitely a difference in quality with some of these shades. The next one I have is Flame-Boyant. I was not going to pick this up. This is the one that I was going to skip on. I didn't plan on picking it up at all until the shade names were released and Samoa Silk was in here. I have wanted to get my hands on Samoa Silk for the longest time, so I was like, whatever, I'm going to grab it. However, I only did one look with this palette. I used a lot of colors, but I only did one look with this palette, whereas I did 2 looks with the others. Let me go ahead and show you. Again, we have this, and then this is what the palette looks like. So the whole reason why I didn't want this is because these are colors that I have a million times over. And while I can say that for both this one and the last one, I don't use warm tones as much anymore, but Samoa Silk was in here, so it was a done deal. I had to have it. But let me go ahead and show you guys the swatches on this one. What's the Pointillism? Samoa Silk, Amber Lights, La Vida Mocha, Dada Issues, Rule, Dollywood, Embark, Fan the Flames, Flame-Boyant, Lover at First Sight, and Everyone's Darling. And then lastly, we have the really bright palette that I have on my eyes right now. Oh, this one, it's really pretty. I don't usually go for palettes like this. I know I don't use them a lot, but I really wanted to see how MAC did with a bright palette like this. So the shades that we have in here are Chrome Yellow, My Kid Could Make That, Bright Pink, Can't Afford This, If It Ain't Borrow Q, I'm not sure how you say that. It's Designer, Starry Night, Dark Room, High Concept, Gallerina, Terrestrial Wave, and Carbon. You knew they had to throw Carbon in there somewhere. And now moving on to the 3 new lipsticks. Each of these are $18.50 a piece, and one of the shades is SOAR. So it's done after the iconic SOAR liner. So in the swatches, I'm going to swatch SOAR right beside the SOAR lipstick. The first one is the one that I am currently wearing, and it's called Down to an Art. It is this beautiful, deeper, peachy brown nude, and I love this shade. I swatched it beside the NARS, what is it called, with a spiky lipstick? Oh, I can't remember the name. Sheena, because I thought at first this was a dupe, but this is just like a lighter version of Sheena. So if you're looking for something like that, but a little bit lighter, this is it. And at the very end, after I say goodbye and everything, I'm gonna leave swatches up, and I'm gonna show these lipsticks beside other lipsticks as well. But moving on, the next one is You Wouldn't Get It. This is a beautiful matte mauvey pink, just really nice and pretty on the lips. It's a good color for somebody who wants to wear pink but doesn't really want to commit to pink at the same time. And then the last one we have is SOAR. This is much darker than what I had anticipated, and my application is not perfect. I am sorry. That's because mine is broken. Hold on. I got it and it just literally fell out like this. So I had to take a lip brush and apply this entire thing, and it was rough, but you guys can actually see the color, so there's that. Now that you guys have seen all the swatches, I'm going to show you the 5 different eye tutorials that I did. I'm going to start off with the one that I'm wearing right now, and I did 2 with this palette. I have no idea what order they're going to be in, but there's 5. And then I did 2 with the nude model, and then 1 with Flame-Boyant. I started this look off with the Sonia G Builder Pro and Bright Pink. I'm using that directly into the crease, and then I am slowly blending it upwards. I don't want it to be too much in the transition area, but I want it to be pigmented. So I'm going in small sections and kind of working it upwards as my transition shade and into the crease. I'm also going to take that same shade on a Smith 220 and work it right along the lower lash line, making sure to connect it to the top part. Now with the Wayne Goss 26S, I'm taking the shade Can't Afford This, and I'm placing it directly into the crease. This mixing with that pink looks stunning. And now I'm going in back and forth windshield wiper motions. I want it to be more intense into the crease, and again, I am blending it up, but I don't want to cover up the pink all of the way. So I'm being very careful with this and taking my time. I'm taking that same shade on my lower lash line with a Wayne Goss 27S. Now with the shade Starry Night on a Sonia G Crease Pro, I am placing that on the outer corner, and I'm doing this in layers, kind of tapping it in and kind of blending it out just a little bit to create a little bit of depth on the outer corner. Now for the lid, I'm taking Dark Room on a MAC 242, and I'm going back and forth, tapping it in, and just working this shade onto the lid. I'm having to pick the shade up several times to get it to really adhere to the lid and have some pigmentation to it, but slowly but surely I do get it there. Now with the light gold shade, I'm taking that wet on a MAC 219, so it'll be really nice and intense on the inner corner. Now I want to kind of smoke this look out, so I'm taking an Esom G34 and the shade Chrome Yellow, and I'm very lightly going around the edges. This is going to blend and kind of make a almost sunset kind of look, so it's going to blend into that pink and make it look slightly orange. I'm mainly keeping this on the outer corner, but I'm also going to blend inward a little bit, and I'm even getting this into the brow, and I'm not mad at it. With a MAC 242, I'm taking that light gold now dry, and I'm going to highlight my brow arch with that shade. And then lastly, I'm going back in with Chrome Yellow on a Wayne Goss number 19. I'm doing the same thing I did up top, right down below, and just blending out the pink with that yellow shade. To finish off this look, I used Milk Boss Liner on my inner top rim, and then Kiss Ritzy Lashes. Same palette, but this time we're going for a blue and green smoky eye. I'm starting off with My Kid Could Make That on a Zoeva 227 directly into the crease first, and then I'm taking my time, adding color, and blending the shade upwards as a transition shade. I'm also going to take that green on the lower lash line using a Royal & Langnickel BOM 48 Omnia. This is a natural hair brush. Using an Esom S33, I'm taking the shade Triennial Wave directly into the crease. First starting out kind of harsh, but I'm going to blend out the edges in small circular motions as well as windshield wiper motions, pulling the shade slightly upward. The blue will turn into a slight green due to it mixing with the first green that we laid down. Again, I'm taking that blue on a BOM 48 and applying it right up against the lower lashes. For the lid, I'm using an Esom W21 to pack on Gallerina. I'm using this dry, so I'm getting some fallout, and I do have to apply this shade several times, layering it up to get full pigmentation. Next, I'm using High Concept Wet on a Sonia G Pencil Pro and applying that to the very inner corner. I love how this kind of blends in with that blue. Lastly, I'm taking that same shade but dry on a MAC 242 and I'm highlighting the brow arch. To finish off the look, I used Milk Boss Liner on the top inner rim, Linda Hallberg's AVOIR Flash Crayon on the lower waterline, and just some mascara. Moving on to the nude model palette, I'm going to do this matte look, and I'm starting off with a Royal & Langnickel BOM 416 Pro and the shade Outre, tapping that all over the lid and all the way up to the crease. Same brush and color, except this time I'm putting it on the tip of the brush and I'm adding that to the lower lash line, just blending it back and forth. Still using the same shade in an Esom S33, I'm taking that and starting in the crease and working it upward for a more smoky eye appearance. Around the edges of that, I'm taking the shade Tete Tint on a Zoeva 227, and I'm blending out the edges of Outre, working it upward and also bringing the excess from the brush along the lower lash line to help blend that out as well. Lastly, I'm going in with a Royal & Langnickel BOM 601 Pro and drop the robe, placing that on the inner corner as well as the brow arch. I finished off this look with Milk Boss Liner on the top inner rim and just mascara. Same palette, but now I'm going for like this purple kind of halo look. First, I'm taking Pleasing to the Eye on a Sonia G Crease 2. I'm applying that to the inner corner, crease, and inner corner and upwards as a transition shade. This shade had to be built up. I spent 6 minutes on this shade alone. So just take your time and really build this shade up if you want it to be this pigmented. Same color on a Wayne Goss number 19, and I'm applying that to the lower lash line. Now with the Wayne Goss number 17, I'm taking the shade Sugar Plum and I'm adding that to the outer corner, crease, and inner corner again, setting up for a halo eye. I'm basically just taking this a little bit lower than we did with the first shade. Same brush, and now using the shade Nude Model, I'm going through the same motions, outer and inner corner and crease. I add a bit more of the shade to the inner and outer corner by tapping it into place and kind of blending it forward onto the lid. I'm using that shade again, except this time I am taking it wet on a Sonia G Pencil Pro and placing it right up against my lower lashes. For the center of the lid, I'm going in with Drop the Robe on an Esom W21, starting on the center of the lid and then tapping over the edges of the last shade. Now I want the very center of the lid to pop, so I try taking LES Artiste on the same Esom W21 to the center of the lid. It doesn't apply. Now I try using it wet. It still doesn't work. So then I try using my finger, so still no avail. So I skipped this step altogether and moved on to highlighting the brow arch and inner corner with Shroom on an Esom W23. And I finished off the look with Milk Boss Liner on the inner top rim and just mascara. For the very last look, I am now going in with the palette Flame-Boyant. I'm taking a Wayne Goss number 18 and Samoa Silk. Starting on the outer corner, working it up into the crease and upwards as a transition shade. I had to apply several layers of this color to get the pigmentation that I wanted. Same shade on a Smith 220 and I applied it to the lower lash line. Back in with the Goss 18 in the shade Rule. Again, starting on the outer corner and then working it into the crease, slightly smoking out the outer corner. Now with Dollywood, I am taking a Sonia G Crease Pro and I'm concentrating this shade on the outer corner, smoking it out and bringing the excess into the crease. Same brush and Lover at First Sight, I am packing and blending that on the outer corner. I had to apply this shade several times to get it to show up how I wanted it to, and it was kind of patchy at first, but I was able to get it to blend out. MAC 221 in the shade Embark, and I'm applying that to the very outermost part of the outer V. I just want to add this in for a little bit of depth, and then I kind of take it halfway into the crease as well. Fan the Flames on a MAC 242. I'm applying that all over the lid, all the way up to the crease. On the inner portion of the lid, the inner corner area, I'm taking Amber Lights and tapping all over the edge of the last red shade we put down, and then I apply it on the front portion of the lower lash line. I took a Sonia G Blender Pro and went around the edges of that just to kind of help blend it out. Lastly, on a MAC 242, I'm highlighting the brow arch with What's the Pointillism, as well as a little bit on the very inner corner of my eye. I finished off this eye look with Milk Boss liner in the top inner rim, and then BCC also from Milk in the lower waterline. And this time I went for winged liner and just mascara. Getting into my thoughts on the products, I'm going to start off with the lipsticks because they're just the easiest to talk about. I like all of these. None of them had a weird smell. I've had an issue recently with sometimes getting MAC lipsticks and them smelling already like they're about to go bad. None of these had that smell. They all felt like the original matte lipstick formula. They felt nice, and I can't really speak to SOAR applying it straight to the lips just because, again, mine was broken, but I love the colors. I love this one the most, and I think that everybody will be able to wear this. This color on a richer skin tone is going to be like the perfect nude. Persistence used to be one of my favorite ones to tell people, but this one as well, and taupe, oh, so good. Now for the palettes. I'm gonna start off with the one that I have on my eyes, and I've gotta tell you a few things that my daughter said. With the swatches, I'm gonna insert this again. The purple shade did not just show up very well. I had to reapply that several times to get it to really show up on my daughter's arm. So when I was putting that one down, she said, has a shade ever been called disappointment? I was laughing so hard because she was really excited for the purple shade. She's like, ooh, that next one looks pretty. And then she said that, and I almost started laughing so hard I was in tears. I will say I had to reapply this even off of camera whenever I was applying my false lashes. That purple shade in here, I feel like it could have been better. It's not terrible, but it could have been better. I think that if I applied it wet or maybe used it on an unset eye or something like that, it would be better. So it's not nearly as bad as I really thought it was going to be just based off the swatch, and that's the reason why I wanted to use it as a main color in one of my looks, is because I like to take the shades that are terrible and see if they're really terrible on the eye. So not bad, but not good either. However, the rest of the palette I was actually impressed with. I did have to layer this shade up several times to get it to be opaque. But when it was opaque, and it lasted. It didn't fade through the day. I wore that all the way, like, I think I had these shadows on my eyes with the green look for probably 16 hours, and the look stayed beautiful all day. I love these mattes right here. I think that they did such a great job. I am so happy with them. This is probably my favorite palette out of the bunch. Carbon always sucks. It sucks. It really does. My daughter had a theory that the bad shades were always being applied down on this part of the arm, so she thought maybe it's just that part of the arm. So what I did was take all the shades that were really patchy, and I meant to tell you, in Flamboyant, I had to go in with a brush for that reddish shade that is swatched in this picture right here. I had to go in with a brush on the original swatches because it just was not picking up on her arm, and it was the first palette that I swatched, so I was like, maybe it is like just something weird. So that was a brush swatch in the swatches of Flamboyant. But as you can see, middle of the arm is still patchy mess with those shades, including Dance in the Dark and Carbon. And what is the other shade? Let me just go into that palette. This one right here, the shade that was funky was this shade right here. And my thoughts on this palette are, it's okay. Now that I have Samoa Silk, I don't know if it's anything like the original because I never got my hands on it. Again, the Samoa Silk, the shade right here, is the only reason I picked this palette up. I think it performed well. I think that this red shade, you guys didn't get to see it, but this red shade has to be worked with. And this one does work well whenever you pack it on it, which seems to be the case with most of the metallics from these palettes. I would suggest either packing them on with a good brush or just skipping everything and going in with them wet, but I didn't want to cheat on my lid. I wanted to see what they looked like dry. Lover at first sight, I did have to go in a few times and add it. I do not think that this is going to perform well like an all over lid shade. I think you're going to have something underneath it, because I already had this shade underneath it, so it kind of helped it to kind of stand out a little bit, but it didn't go away or anything like that. It didn't go on and then just blend off, so it was better on the eye than it was swatched, but I'm still not like thrilled with it, if you know what I mean. I would say this is my least favorite out of the bunch, not because it's a bad palette. I would give this about a B+, but mainly just because I have these shades so many times over and I have them in better formulas, especially the red. I compare everything to Queen of Hearts from Sydney Grace. $6 eyeshadow knocks this one out of the park. So I only got this for Samoa Silk, and I'm glad to have the palette. I'm sure I will use it again, but it's the last one that I would recommend. Now for Nude Model. This is the palette that contains the most permanent shades. So all of them have a few shades in there that are permanent shades to the line, but this one has quite a few. So let me point those out. I need my handy dandy little sheet right here. So Shroom is a permanent color, Espresso, Tete-a-Tente, as well as Dance in the Dark. I used this palette once before filming to get a feel for it, so I have the most experience with this palette, and I don't know, I'm a little bit on the fence with this. I still like it. I really do like this palette. I have some qualms with it. The fact that Dance in the Dark feels like sandpaper is really annoying to me. And this shade right here it already has, what is this? What is that? I'm not kidding. What is this? It already has hard pan on it, and I can't get that to work. You saw in the clip where I was trying 3 different ways: a dry brush, a wet brush, and my finger, and it just was not working. And I'm gonna tell you, I pick up my product from the pan before I spray it to make it wet. So this shadow never got wet. I don't know what is wrong with it, but this is an absolute dud. You can get some color pigmentation with Dance in the Dark, but it feels like sandpaper. I much prefer the smoothness of the other ones. This one can be just like a little bit patchy, a little bit gritty. I also have to say that this shade right here, I took 6 minutes to get this color to show up as this color on my eye. So that was disappointing. I did get the color to the intensity that I wanted to, but for it to take that long was kind of annoying. So if you want a real simple wash of color, it's gonna be great. But if you want this color, the color that you swatch, the color that it looks like in the pan to actually come up on your eyes, you're going to have to work for it. So keep that in mind. I didn't really have any issues with any of the other shades. I love this yellowy mustard gross looking shade right here. I love it, especially paired with Tete-a-Tente. It's gorgeous. Like that look that I did, that matte look. Oh, it's one of my favorites. So I like this palette, and I don't at the same time. I would have to say it's up to you if 2 duds in the palette is going to be worth it or not. I think everything else works just fine. It's just those 2 colors that are meh. So out of all of them, quality-wise, its designer wins. I think it's the best out of all of them. And then the one that I think that I will get the most use out of is the Nude Model, even being that I have all of the permanent shades that are in this palette already in my collection. For me, it's just nice to have them all together. And if anybody was curious, these are full-size pans. But this shade right here, I absolutely love it. So I was more impressed after using them than I was when I was swatching them. So if you are considering picking up one of these palettes, definitely go for it. Just keep in mind the shades that I said were not really that great. If they were the ones that you were excited about, maybe don't pick it up. But let me know what you guys think about these. Let me know if you're picking any of these up or if you already have, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.